another episode of NRG Insights. It's during our lender series at the moment, so we're speaking to respected people in the lending market, a little bit about their businesses and also how they've got to where they are, and any kind of tips and hints they can give brokers moving into that market. So today I've got Jaxon Stevens from Tuscan Capital. Thanks for joining me, Jaxon.
No problem, Marcus. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Now let's just start. We'll talk to me about your journey. How did you get to where you are now? A brief one, because you've been knocking around for a while. So how did you?
Thanks very much.
How did you get to where you are now at Tuscan?
I kind of knew I always wanted to work in money for some reason. Growing up, that was always a thing, and I was pretty good at maths, so the two seemed to work quite well together. Joined high street banking out of school, learnt the ropes, then was kind of seduced by the specialist markets, doing a bit of specialist mortgages and second charge lending as an underwriter and advisor. So that was quite good fun as well. So that was kind of the first decade-ish, I suppose, of work. But I started to realise through that work that I really enjoyed supporting others and developing others and those around me. So I then kind of sort of moved into team leadership and management, and now obviously sales director roles in the last couple of roles I've been into. So I really enjoy providing solutions. I think it's really important, and I think in the specialist space you have the ability to kind of develop and educate both your staff around you and the wider market when it comes to introducers, brokers, financial advisors, and consumers themselves as well, because I think it's a lifelong task for all of us in the industry to make sure that we continue to bang the drum and make sure everyone's aware of everything that's available and how it works.
I'm already sort of veering off, but do you think it happens enough? Do you think we should be educating people more? Or is it
No, I don't think anyone should ever kind of sit back and think, well, I've done it now. I've educated everyone, and there's no more education to do. I think it's an endless task, and I think we have new generations of mortgage brokers that come into the market. The market moves dramatically. So if you've been a broker and only worked in the space for the last 5-10 years, you've only ever dealt with these low rate mortgages, and people started talking about tracker rates last year, and people didn't know what that was all about. So I mean, the education piece will go on forever, and I think, unfortunately,
educating your clients, which are obviously brokers, or do you think, as well as brokers, should be educating their clients as well?
Yeah, I think it's about making sure that our clients, who ultimately are the intermediaries, are confident when it comes to discussing solutions with their client bank. It's great to fully understand the residential mortgage market and buy-to-let space. That's a hard task in itself. I think last count is over 5,000 options in that space for clients to potentially opt for, so it's a tricky job. And then if you tag on the specialist space as well, if you're looking at second charges, bridging, commercial, development, all those bits and pieces, then of course you're taking those numbers into astronomical levels. So it's really important to raise awareness of the options and make sure that advisors feel confident and comfortable when talking to their client bank about the potential solutions available.
Yeah. And did you notice this last year? Has it come up much? Because obviously the resi market's been tough, right? Everyone's had a tough. Every market was not great last year, but people kind of toying with specialist lending or thinking they want to make a few quid, and they suddenly realise that they can't just give leads away and that kind of thing. Have you dealt with that side of the market where kind of they don't really know what they're doing yet? I think that's a tricky one, because lots of people want to move into commercial because they've heard the proc fees are good and they know the business, and the business is big. But actually, like I always say, 0% of nothing is still nothing, or 2% of nothing is still nothing. Did you deal with that last year? Did it seem to be more?
Yeah, I think last year was another time. I think 25 years I've done this, so there's been a few waves of people wanting to diversify, needing to diversify, looking to sort of the off the high street space, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah.
And it comes in waves. Every few years there's a bit of a additional interest in what other solutions are available, because there's more and more clients sitting in front of people and they're not being able to be placed with the high street, or not getting the support that they may have done months previously. So last year was definitely another time for that, and I think although there's been a lot of positive news this month already with reductions to mortgage rates, I still think, because of the new kind of I hate saying new normal, that's coming out of COVID times, isn't it? But you know what I mean? The new normal with regards to kind of base rate and
where
product
money
rate.
actually costs something to borrow.
Yeah, then I still think there is a need for people to be a little bit kind of outside of the box thinking and looking at other solutions. So I think into this year, 2024, that interest in specialist solutions and offering, just having a wider toolkit to help more of the people that sit in front of you has never been more important.
When you get lots of new people into the market, though, you run the risk of people giving not great advice because they don't fully understand it. I suppose that's down to you guys to keep the brokers educated as well. But that's my fear, right? So everyone wants to join a new product because it's a great product. Actually, you don't know that product very well. So it's like, it's like me trying to do someone's resi mortgage. I don't know enough about it. Do they run the risk of that, or do you just see more applications?
I think there's always a risk of that. I think it's less so these days. I mean, we've always, or not always had, but for a long time now, we've had these sourcing systems, and they've now become very in depth with regards to the amount of information you can put into these systems. So, I mean, we still need a human at the side behind the wheel, but there's a lot.
Specialist as well, isn't it? Because sourcing systems are amazing for resi. You can come out with the top one. But there's so many moving parts to specialist. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a conversation. You have to pick up the phone. You have to dig beneath the skin on all these opportunities that come up. But yeah, I think it's just about making sure we're ever present, we're openly available. I'll often speak to my network about options and opportunities that they're not necessarily a Tuscan Capital solution, but due to my vast experience, I'm able to potentially point them in the right direction or suggest a potential outcome that they may not have considered. So, to say, it's all about the wider awareness piece for all the specialist solutions that are out there, really.
Do you think, I mean, this is a close question anyway, but like you said, you're a big fan of providing solutions, and you will go outside of the bit that makes you money, is the bottom line. Do the bit where you can help, so you can help people. Do you think that's a direct reflection of how far you've got in business, or in the business and moving up the ladder to that kind of management tier and well respected in the industry? Like I said, it's a close question because of course it is, but it makes a difference, right? To actually to give a shit, to make sure that people actually get the right solutions. It's not just about making that money on that transaction.
Yeah, it does completely, and it can't be taken for granted because you still see every now and again those that aren't necessarily that way inclined, and I think they stand out a mile. I think what's best for all of us that are working in this space is industry growth across the board, and that has to come as a team attack, really. I hate the word competitors. I don't really believe there are competitors. Of course there are. I'm not naive to think there aren't. But we're all trying to do the same thing for the same people. And I think the more we can grow the market itself, the more we'll all reap the benefits of that. And I've always had that mindset.
Yeah. And do you think that's do you think it happens more now? Because I suppose it's
I think it probably does.
Yeah, right. Because Leeds were not. It's very easy to be collaborative when there's lots of money floating around. When it gets tighter, people just naturally tighten up, don't they? So it's interesting you still remain that way of, look, it's better to help someone than not.
Yeah, but just because I can't help someone today, if I do as much as I possibly can today, then that means that next week or next month, when help is required that I can provide, it's me that has that relationship that they're going to talk to. So it's never about that now conversation. It's always about where that may lead and what's around the corner. So I think anyone who goes through short-sighted enough to believe that any one transaction is the most important thing they're ever going to do is pretty short-sighted, because I think it's all about relationships. I always said when I was at Positive Lending, national sales manager there, one of my favourite lines to my brokers and introducers there was, it's not about the first deal I'll do for you, it's about the 10th deal I'll do for you. It really is about that. It's about building a relationship, building trust, and making sure that you can be on hand to help. And I say the same thing now. It's not about this one deal that we discussed in your office today. It's about you getting this market, you understanding how it works, the costs involved, the solutions that it provides, and then getting the second, the third, the fourth deal through, because that's the important stuff.
Well, this is a really interesting subject, right? We will delve into it. One, because you've been in the industry a long time, and two, because you're in that management side of things now. Because I think, I sound like an old man when I say it, and I seem to be saying it more and more because I'm getting older. But that short-term, instant gratification, money now, I've seen it on YouTube, I want it, and missing the fact of that long-term stuff. I do think it's getting lost, you know, the fact that I know all the hard work I put in now is going to help me in 3 years' time, right? I know I'm not going to make money out of people right now. I know that building relationships is what's important, but my kids, for instance, watch people earning money the second they post something.
Yeah.
And do you think that's going to? Do you think that gets lost in the that because we were brought up on relationship management, weren't we? So we kind of know that, but I'm not into instant gratification. Or do you think it's generational? Or do you think some people are transactional and some people aren't?
I think that you're always going to have those transactional types, and for some it'll work. And the likes of you and I will lose a deal now and again to those that work that way. But I think, you know, so we've both done it for a little while, and I think you know that time tells that relationships win out always. And quite often it can be a relationship that's had a very rocky start. You've not been able to provide the solution you wanted or the service you wanted to provide for whatever reason, and it started off on a very rocky track. But if you stick at that and you work it, you explain why things have happened, and you manage expectations, then that is a relationship that will come good in the end.
In all honesty, being brutally honest about my recruitment career, if I look back at and I think this was ego driven, right? If I couldn't do a good job for someone at first, I sort of let it go by the wayside. And I think it's because maybe it was an embarrassment thing. You didn't really understand that it's fine, it's a long term thing. And as time went on, I realised that it's not this job, it's your business I want. You know, so it's not going to. And as long as you can suck it up, and if you can't do a good job for someone straight away, you don't lose that connection. I shudder to think about the business I've lost in the first few years of doing it through being too arrogant to pick up the phone and go, sorry man, I couldn't help with that, but I'd love to speak to you again. I think that's a bit, you know, if people can skip that bit, that'll save you a good amount of money in the long run.
That's all part of the learning, though, isn't it? I think you have to go through that as well to understand and appreciate the other side of the coin. So, you know, it's all what you need to do really to get where you are now, I think.
Yeah, this is more like a therapy session then, working out what I've done wrong. So,
who's the therapist?
Yeah. In regards to your management side of things, I know you said you love building people up. What have you seen in kind of the changes in the market and how the market's going? What have you seen trends-wise into how you have to manage people? Is it a relatively easy role, or do you think is it getting harder?
I think again it changes with the tide, really. I mean, you know, we obviously went through a very tricky time in a sort of BDM account management space through COVID and the lack of face-to-face contacts. I think we're well up and running now with regards to back to where we used to be, and I think there's also more of a hunger for people to want to see people face-to-face because of the time that we've lost through that COVID period. So trying to get people...
You fortune on donuts, didn't you? Not going out to see people for a couple of years. All those donuts you saved, not those brokers not getting their free gifts.
But it's fed into the role massively with regards to the ability to do things like this, you know, Zoom calls and video calls, the ability to reduce, you know, mileage bills for firms. You know, I was doing 3,000 to 4,000 miles a month, I think, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
I don't do that now, and I don't feel the need to do that now. I don't think anyone should do that now necessarily, but you can manage your diary well. You should still be out face-to-face with people as often as you can be.
This is an interesting point, right? And it's coming off the bat. If you look at the bags under my eyes, I did a 9-hour yesterday to go and see a client, and because that obviously was back in late last night, which means I had to catch up with work, etc. I love it. I'm not complaining about it, but I do think I'm winning over someone else that isn't prepared to do that. So I know Zoom calls are really important, but how important is it to get out and shake hands as well? I mean, I think people rely on it. I think we've become over reliant on this. I know BDMs are going back onto the market again, but what's your view on kind of face to face over?
It's the most important thing in my view. You can't sell yourself or your products as well over a Zoom call or telephone call as you can face to face, because it's about understanding your audience, and if you can't read someone by not being with them, you can't pick up little nuances that occur in a face-to-face environment, and you can't really build outside of a business relationship that friendship element of it either. I don't feel personally. So for me, I think you're right. I think people feel valued when you take the time and effort to go out and see them, but at the same time you can do your job better by being in front of them.
Yeah.
They
there's
can't,
the
they
other side
can't
of the
get away.
coin.
They can't switch off. They're not
Yeah.
distracted.
The other side of the coin is that you've lost a day when you could have spoken to 10 people, right? So
Yeah.
there's the happy medium of it. I will never
But,
not run to, if a client wants to see me, I don't care where they are, I would get up and...
but that would be a 5-day-a-week thing pre-COVID for me and my
That's
sales
different.
team.
Now I'm back in the
You know,
office doing these, so it's very different.
exactly. No, there'd be a different postcode in the diary every day, and my guys would be out doing 3 or 4 appointments a day, 5 days a week. Relentless stuff, really. But now there's a real balance. You know, you can do a couple of days out on the road, maybe 3, couple of days doing Zooms and Teams, and another day, you know, getting your diary full for the weeks to follow. So there's a way to do it now that doesn't involve, you know, 12-hour days on the road 5 days a week. So that's not good for anyone. I mean, there is always that risk of burnout.
Lovely.
So.
And the petrol station food's getting better. I had some
Yeah.
yesterday.
I'm sure it can be done, but I think it's about managing your time better. And there's lots of things. Obviously, you know, social media is a huge impact now these days on the way people sell themselves and sell their products. So there are many other avenues than there used to be. So
How are you embracing that side of things? Because obviously, like what you said before, we didn't grow up with it. So some things that we're going to find really natural, like relationship building and running and seeing clients and that kind of thing, people aren't. Whereas what they are going to be really good at is social media, right? If you've grown up with it, you know exactly how to kind of transact on there. How have you embraced that change in the way we do business?
I mean, I'm a huge advocate for it, as you'll know, and I'm sure many that know me will know as well. I mean, I like to be consistent, have a clear message. I've always encouraged my teams to get the message out there. I mean, it's about sort of brand placement, brand awareness, and that's personal brand as well as the brand you're working for. Yeah. If you can be the person or the brand that people think about when something comes up, then it's because you put yourself in their head somehow. You can't get out to see everyone as often as you want to. You can't do this, video calls with everyone as much as you want to. And a lot of the people that you'll approach to talk to don't think that they'll necessarily need what you're offering them at that moment in time anyway. Yeah. But if you can remain consistent and constant in their psyche somehow, which social media allows you to do, then you've got every chance, of picking up.
It's touch points, isn't it? We always say that.
Like, it's about touch points.
Absolutely. We can add another 12 touch points to our journey because we're in front of people all the time. We can't. It's not the old. That was when you had to go out and see people a lot more because you literally need to get in front of them now. And also, you can't speak to 8,000 brokers. No one's going to buy tickets to a stadium.
No.
You talk about bridging products, but you can say something on here and 8,000 brokers can see it. I think that's the best thing. That you can get your message out a lot further. It's just like you say. It's not as intense. It's just I'm still here. It's a constant.
Yeah, when I put my sales strategy in place for Sancus and we all got together at the start of last year, I did a big thing on touch points, and it was kind of how many touch points a day do you think you can get? And the people generally were very low with their responses. And I said, well, that's ridiculous because all you really need to do is like a post, comment on a post, make a few phone calls, go to a networking event. That could be 150 touch points in that event. So if I'm asking you to do 25 touch points a day, do you think that's achievable? And it was a mindset change for the sales guys. I mean, it was like, well, I actually can do that, but I never really thought about it in that way. So however you do that, whether that's with an email campaign, a phone call, a video call, face-to-face, networking, social media, it's very easy to get those touch points up.
Genius.
Absolutely, the best way to do it, of course, jump on the NRG podcast. But it's the same as like when you're doing an exhibition and you've got paraphernalia to give away, pens and notepads and coasters. It's just about that kind of placement piece, isn't it? So I think
merchandise. We've never done the merchandise thing, but now I can 100% see the benefit of it because I've got lenders' stuff all around this office.
Yeah.
And you think, I know I'm not a client of this, but from trade shows and that kind of thing, everything knocking around. And that's what you want, isn't it? You just want those little bits where someone's looking around going, that's the one. Oh, look.
It's as simple as that. I mean, so often, yes, relationships are really important and you like to value your relationships enough that you'll get that next opportunity every time. But in reality, it's probably the last person they spoke to or the first person they can think of when that opportunity arrives. So whatever you can do to help that be you've got to do it.
Yeah. I had this conversation I like to think, it's a conversation I just had with someone. I said, I love to think that in the mortgage world and the finance world, I am the first thing people think of when they think of recruitment. However, I also know that I will be forgotten in a minute if I stopped working hard or if I stopped the touch points. It doesn't matter the service. You can give the best service in the world. People will forget you. I've had it in the past, but before we did all this, and we were like the best kept secret. You would speak to someone, and they would have done it with someone else, and they'll go, "Oh, sorry, they picked up the phone when, yeah, no, of course I should have used you. You've just done the last 6 people for us." People don't give a shit. If you're not solving their problem, and the second they need it, so I think that's really important, and that's for brokers, lenders, everyone, isn't it?
I think especially in the specialist space, you've got these mortgage brokers that are our core intermediary base that are so busy trying to remember, like I say, 5,000 products plus in their market space. What's the chance of them thinking of you out of 150 bridging lenders when they have a potential bridge opportunity? I mean, that's asking a lot, however strong your relationship is.
Yeah.
So, you've got to do
great brand.
Yeah, you've got to do everything you can to be that guy. So, or girl.
Talk on that actually, because I've had obviously none of these have gone live yet, but I've got a few on the bridging market, and we talked about this about USPs, right? Because it's quite hard in regards to USPs for you guys, because you're right. There's 150 bridging lenders, or whatever it is, 200 odd specialist finance lenders out there. In regards to USPs, because everyone wants to be quick, right? On the bridging side, everyone can say they're quicker, but it's how quick your lawyer is or whatever it is. How hard is it to separate yourselves from other people in that industry? But given that, it's not as saturated as it was last year, to be fair. A few have fallen by the wayside. But
yeah.
How easy is it, or how hard is it to kind of separate yourselves from the crowd?
It is hard because, I don't know if anyone has a true USP, because you will hear of, we've got the best service, we're the quickest, we'll offer the most leverage.
That's what a bridge is.
Exactly. So it's very, very hard. So this is where that relationship piece really does come into play.
Yeah.
I think we are quick, and we do offer good leverage. So we have we offer good service too. So, but I don't think any bridging lender is going to sit in front of you and say they don't do that, are they? So, it's just important. Again, I think it comes down to brand awareness, so people know where you are, how they can interact with you. When they interact with you, they know what they're going to get. They know they can have a full and frank and honest discussion, and they'll get an honest answer, a quick no, or how can we do this, or what do we need to do to make this happen. Yeah. So it all comes down to relationships and expertise ultimately at the end of the day.
Right. I suppose, yeah, and the underwriting side of things, like you said then, if it's a how do we do this as opposed to no we don't.
Yeah, I've always done that. We can't do that, but what we can do is this.
Underwriting, right, Jaxon? Did I say any of that? Does that help you? Because I suppose a lot of people who've come 100%. From underwriting into a sales role,
yeah,
because you've got that sales patter about you, but actually that technical knowledge is something that it makes you an authority, not just someone likes.
Oh, it's helped me hugely, and even more recently, I've been writing credit papers and training others to write credit papers in the development space as well, and that has helped me kind of pull back on my underwriting days as well, because it was some time ago. But yeah, having that insider knowledge, how a deal works, what the process looks like, why we're asking for the things we're asking for, all the third parties that get involved, why they're involved, what are they going to do. Yeah, you can't undervalue that experience at all. And for me, when I talk about upskilling my teams, I want them to be fully aware of valuers, surveyors, solicitors, processes, fees, understanding questions they're going to ask. There is. It's hard because a salesman is not an underwriter, or salesperson is not an underwriter. An underwriter is not a salesperson.
If we do like the behavioural type stuff between underwriting and sales, they're very different normally.
Yeah. I think the skill sets are very different.
I think it's hard to find. We speak to underwriters that want to become people.
There's some work going on here. Sorry.
Next door, they want to be BDMs, and it's quite hard for them to get into that side of the market, because I don't think they're considered maybe salesy enough. I think So
yeah, I'm always happy to give them a go, because I think their skill set is huge. But being able to sit at your desk and analyse a paper or an application is one skill. Standing up in front of 150 brokers doing a presentation is a very, very different skill. And having both of those skills is hard to find. It is hard to find, but it doesn't mean it's not possible.
They don't tend to work together.
No, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. It doesn't mean it can't be trained or taught. It's all about, for me, about the passion of the role. So if it's what you really want to do, if you are an underwriter and you do really want to get into the BDM space, just go for it. You've got to go for it, because someone will give you a punt, someone will give you a go. And ultimately, if you're liaising with clients and brokers, you're kind of doing that salesy bit.
Off, are you? But yeah,
you've got to believe that. You've got to believe that is what you're doing, haven't you? So
yeah. And like you say, you won't look stupid is the main thing, right? Because
No way.
even if you haven't got that sales patter of a BDM yet, you have the technical knowledge that gets you through that first few until you learn it. I suppose.
And relationships are won in many
Say
different ways.
relationship, yeah.
Many of them are won through that technical understanding and analysis, and many others are won through the personable
I
side.
think
So,
that, right? Because it's who you're selling to, right? So obviously, my business is I speak to. I don't know how to say selling to, but you know what I mean. It is predominantly. Hopefully, I don't go that for too long. So yeah, I speak to MDs and CEOs and that kind of thing who are very similar to me, right? Everyone is that kind of emotional, sales-driven. I don't think I can particularly sell my product too well to technical people.
okay.
They're a bit more facts and figures, and I'm like, I want to see how your business looks in 5 years, and I get emotionally involved in it, and they don't. So there is a place for the more analytical, technical person who, because someone else who is analytical want to speak figures, as opposed to me jumping out my seat, getting excited about how the business is going to look. So there's definitely a place for it, isn't it?
What always works really, really well, and I've done this for years, really, is I've always invited wherever I've been, I've invited our underwriters out on the road with our sales teams.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really important from both sides of the scale. I think the underwriter to understand what goes into a general kind of sales visit, so to speak, but then for the sales person to have the added support of the technical knowledge right next to them, I mean, that works amazingly well. And I think it's appreciated by everyone involved in that.
Yeah.
So that's something I'll continue to push, something I'll continue to do.
It makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense to have, if you're not that way inclined, have someone with you who is that you can cover both bases.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's huge value then for whoever that is that you're sitting in front of. Hopefully it's someone who sent you some business, got some live cases, you can talk through live scenarios, and that for strengthening relationships is about as good as it gets, I think.
Nice. Let's delve in. I said I was going to delve into this, and then I went 15 minutes into something else, which is normally where I go. But so obviously, as a leader, where you're at the moment, and driving people that way, what would you say makes a good manager, for instance, in financial services, and what has driven you to work harder to become a leader?
For me, it is about people development. I mean, I've had lots of people sort of come through my leadership, so to speak, that have gone on to bigger and better things, and I'm really proud of that. And even if I had just the tiniest influence on that process, yeah, it's so satisfying to know that's happened. I've had people that have worked for me that have followed me job to job, people that want to work with me again, and that I love. So.
Have you had good leaders in your life up to that? Have you had people that you think that's how I want to be, or have you learned from people not doing it? Because that's
I think I'm a little bit of everyone that's ever led me. I don't know if I've ever got any one kind of main influence that's gone right. Well, that's why I want to be a leader.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen some terrible leaders that have some good traits, and I've seen really good leaders that have some bad traits. Yeah. I think trying to take all of that on board and become my own version of all those good traits, ideally. Yeah. I'm sure there's some bad ones in there. Someone will let you know.
We'll bring your team on just afterwards and drill down on it.
Yeah. But I just want I want people to be working in a nice environment, know where they are, be self-accountable. Know the importance of them doing a good job. I think that's really key.
What do you think? In regards to retention, because BDMs move, right? You have got that problem of they'll sell another product because they've all got their book and they'll sell another product if it needs be. What's the most important thing, do you think? Because it's probably relative to brokers as well. In regards to retaining those people, what do you think? If you could boil it down, what's the most important thing to retain your team as a leader?
It's the working environment, isn't it? I like people to self-manage. I mean, I'm not a micromanager, but I like people to micromanage themselves. And if they're not, then it may appear that I'm a micromanager. But I just want someone to be accountable, to understand the importance of their activity. I mean, you can't hide. There's no point in trying because that's just never going to work. So. Having a good environment, having a strong team around you. I mean, the proposition and the team that you're within is so important. You can be the best salesman in the world, but if you don't have a supportive structure around you with regards to products and team and brand, then you're kind of fighting a losing battle, really. So it's a combination.
We do speak to people who are like that. They're excellent. They're just in the wrong business.
Yeah.
You must see that as you go through.
Oh, of course, absolutely, time and time again. And then there's the other end of the scale. You see really good businesses with really good products, and wonder how these people, aren't selling it. So I mean, it works both ways. But I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
if you can provide someone with that environment, for me, that when I put a list of requirements down, just personally, whenever I'm interviewing someone or I'm hiring, for me, passion is key. Passion is number one.
Yeah.
And it's passion about the industry. I mean, that probably comes across on what I've said about my education piece, because that's really key. But then that passion will automatically filter to your brand that you're representing. And if you're in that position where you're passionate about the industry, passionate about the brand, and you're working in a good environment, that's the best chance you've got, I think, of retaining someone. I don't think there's a foolproof solution. I don't think you can. There's no one that isn't unretainable. Whatever.
Whatever the
There's no
word
one
is, yeah.
that you can't necessarily retain. But I think if you can give them the best possible option. But I've always been open. If my staff have come to me and said that there's a better option around the corner open to them, I've helped people write presentations for other roles that they've wanted to go for. I mean, if what I'm providing them isn't what they need or what they want, whether that's me or the product or the structure I'm working within, then I'm all for them, trying to find their happy home.
It genuinely makes good leaders. I spoke to Roger Morris yesterday, and he was saying that your sole job is to make people the best version of them.
Yeah.
Once they get to the point where you can't do that anymore, you're quite happy for them to go on, because actually the best version of them is somewhere else.
Yeah,
So
and I get that. And I completely agree with that. And although that might be hard sometimes, I mean, I've had a few instances where I kind of wish it had worked out. But
it costs to retrain and rehire, and that.
Of course, it does.
It's a happy
But
medium.
there's always a bigger picture, isn't there? This market moves dramatically, and you never know in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years time who's going to be on whose path. So you've got to help those around you to get to where they need to be, and then hopefully that'll come back around one day, one way or another.
Thinking long term like that is a really good thing for just not being a knobhead when you leave somewhere. Well, you know what I mean, or just not burning bridges, because it's such a small industry, isn't it? And you are.
That's one of the biggest bits of advice I give. You can't burn a bridge. It's so small, the world that we're in. And okay, we are talking about thousands of people. We talk about brokers, lenders, products, whatever. But it's such a small world that we're in, and it's such a moving space that you cannot burn a bridge.
That guy will be interviewing him one day.
Definitely going to happen. I mean, I've been interviewed by people that I've then interviewed years later.
Of course.
It will happen. It will happen. So you've got to be the nicest version of yourself as often as you can be.
Yeah. But I mean, that should be us anyway, right? Not just because we're going to bump into people. But
We just wake up like that, mate. It's easy. Yeah.
So anyone aspiring to be a leader at the moment, anyone or looking to grow their team and that kind of thing, because obviously that's the people we come across. As a long time leader in this business, what advice can you give to someone if they're just starting out on it? What do you think the main traits are that they need to look at to become a good leader?
I think first and foremost, lead by example. I think be the busiest, best person around you, because then people are going to feed off that. People are going to naturally want to be in that mould. I mean, be busy for busy, not being busy for busy's sake, but
busy idiot. But
make sure.
Do you know what? I speak to so many people when they do the old, well, I've done it for that long, I don't need to show you how to, I've earned my stripes kind of thing, and it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because people aren't going to follow you if you're not doing it. And it's
I completely agree.
It's the ivory tower thing. It just doesn't work, especially now when you can't drive people the way you used to. You're not still someone's chair if they don't do enough business. It's a very different environment now. They've got to see it. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think that's all you can do, really. I mean, I'll often say do as I do, not as I say in some instances, but I'll hopefully do both. But I'll try my best to lead by example, however that is, if that's how I am at an event, or that's the hours that I'm putting in, or the response times that I'm giving to my introducers. I mean, I think it's really important. I think I've built my network on being ever ready for an inquiry, so to speak.
Yeah.
And if I start to not do that, then someone else is going to be more ready than I am for that inquiry. So
I think that's a great way to drive yourself, isn't it? Just that there is someone around the corner trying to work harder than you, or be better than you at whatever you're doing. And so I know you said you don't like competition, or not the word competitors, but I think that's a real driver. Because there's someone nipping at your heels somewhere that is like nipping at your network.
And don't leave anything in the tank. Always give everything you can give, because if you don't, then you can only really blame yourself if it doesn't work. Because if you know you've got more to give than give it, why would you hold back? So yeah, there's always someone that's looking and trying harder than you potentially. So don't let there be.
Yeah. And also on the leadership side, and this came up this morning, Sunday while I'm thinking about it, but it's really important, and it's good to get leaders' opinions on it. There's a lot of people, and this is obviously from a recruitment perspective as well, and we are about retention for people. We don't just want to be moving people for moving people's sake. There seems to be a generation of people now that would rather move than have an awkward conversation with their boss. How open are you to, obviously you're open to awkward conversations, but how easy is it for people to know that they can come and talk to you? Or how easy should it be for people to talk to their boss? Because I'm seeing it left, right and centre where I'm speaking to people and going, just have a word with your boss. If you love your job and you feel undervalued, let them know. And they're like, no, because he won't value me, just find me another job. And I'm like, first things first, that's a waste of time. Go and speak to your boss. How do you get that across the younger generation that that's okay?
From my perspective, I've always tried to be in the trenches with my teams. I've never kind of sat at the top, barking out orders like a chess master. I mean, I am the pawn on that table with all these other pawns around me, and we're all fighting the same battle. So, shoulder to shoulder. I mean, hopefully that encourages that kind of interaction from those people that I'm accountable for. But if it's not that type of manager, you've just got what's the worst that can happen? I mean, that's quite often my view to anything. If you're not in a good place and you can't sort of carry on the track that you're on, then you've got to have that discussion. Don't just decide to down tools and get out of there. You never know. I mean, have that discussion. It might be something, hopefully your one-to-ones have been done and your boss is fully aware of where you want to be, how you want to get there, how they can support you. But if that conversation hasn't happened and that you're not working in that environment, you never know. That conversation could be the best thing you've ever done. It could be your boss, I had no idea you felt like this. Actually, I was thinking about bringing someone else in to do that part of your job.
You know what? They don't have any idea you feel like that. That's the conversation I had with someone this morning. As someone who has people that work with them, you don't always know because we're busy doing our job, right? So sometimes you aren't aware. And this kid, that's Arab. It was not a kid, but he was just saying, he knows I'm undervalued, and I was saying, you need to have that conversation because he probably doesn't. And he probably gutted to think that you thought like that. And I know who they're talking about now, and I absolutely think they would. But it's really interesting. It's really interesting that people, like you said, you have to be able to come to the leader, right? You have to be able to ask the question. And if you leave without asking the question, like you said, what's the worst that can happen?
No. If you already clock it out, then But it can work both ways. If that's the position you're in, you're feeling undervalued, you can have a conversation that maybe puts things into perspective, that makes you feel actually, maybe I've misread that and I'm not quite as undervalued as I thought I was. Or, as you said, vice versa, your manager turns around and says, I'm so sorry you felt like that. I'll be sure to make sure, I'm providing more encouragement, more structure around recognising the good things that you do. So again, it's a win-win.
Long-term thing as well. It's like, if I'm not getting it right now, I'll leave and someone else will give it to me. Whereas, in fact, if you go to the manager and they'll go, look, you're not where you think you should be, but do X, Y, Z, and you'll get there. It gives you a bit more of a plan, doesn't it?
That's it. And if it is an unreasonable trait that you've obtained, you're not going to drop that in your next role, so you're going to be in the same position 12, 18 months down the line thinking, I'm undervalued again. And which side of the story are we looking at here?
That's the recruitment magic. When you speak to someone and go, the last 5 jobs is all the same. You go, so you've had a knobhead as a boss for the last 17 jobs in the last 3 years.
A lot of knobheads out there.
I feel like, it might be you.
You've got to have those discussions. Hopefully, say you're in an open enough environment where you can do that. But even if you're not, don't be afraid to have that chat anyway. It might just make you feel better at the end of the day. So.
Do you know? At least you've had it. But I do think it's the old man thing. But people don't like rejection now. We don't have that cold calling mentality that we used to. We could just handle it and it was normal. Everything's. You've got to be nice to each other. Which I think.
Back to one thing we said though really early on about losing that deal, or not kind of holding your hands up and or maybe apologising. Again, it's all part of the learning process, and if you want to be the best version of yourself, you have to take those those digs and those bumps to learn where you change moving forward. You have to. So, you know, that conversation could lead to an insight that you were nowhere near realising yourself. And it might just be an agree to disagree moment, but at the same time, there might be something there that you then carry forward, and you're not in that position again. So,
yeah. Amazing. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, but I've taken you 10 minutes over as long as I said I would. However, I normally ask at the last bit for a bit of advice for people for moving forward in 2024, but I think the last bit was absolutely perfect. I'm going to ask it anyway because I do everyone. So if you're looking at someone kickstarting their 2024. Obviously, with how last year was, what kind of advice can you give to someone at the moment that's going to one bit of advice that could push someone on for the remainder of this year?
Keep the faith, I suppose, more than anything else. I mean, we've seen a great start to the year with regards to mortgage rates. We've seen that is going to feed confidence and stability into the market. Don't keep waiting for things to change dramatically. I think the majority of changes have probably occurred. So get comfortable with where we are today. There may be some small movements with regards to what's available, but just keep the faith and embrace today and do the best you can with it, because I think this is kind of where we are now moving forward, or certainly not far off it. Yeah. I think a lot of people spent a lot last year waiting, and that works from a candidate perspective on your side. It works from brokers, it works for clients, it works for buyers, sellers, lenders. Yeah. I think the time to wait is over, and I think we are now
get going
in the future. The future is here, so let's embrace it.
Amazing, thank you. And if anyone wants to get hold of you, obviously all of your information will be on our socials. If anyone wants to get hold of you, they're listening to this. How's the best way to get hold of you?
Best way is through LinkedIn. To be honest, I'm very active on there. You can find me on there, regularly posting with all my contact details, my website. Phone number, email address, everything's on there, so that's the best way to find me.
Amazing. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for everyone listening. I appreciate it, and I will speak to you soon, Jaxon. Thank you.
Cheers, Marcus. Take care. Thanks a lot.